Welcome to the AI. Ready the podcast for Lucy and Andrew.
Welcome to the AI Readiness podcast. And do you know what, guys? We're 10. We're 10 today.
10 episodes. We haven't been cancelled yet.
This is number 10. I'm feeling rather proud.
We should do 10 theme for everything, like 10 comments, 10 learning points, 10 first impressions, just to make everything.
10 moans, 10 groans. Yeah, okay, got it. We've got the
That'd
theme.
be like a 6-hour podcast.
10 out of 10.
Got 10 bananas.
Hopefully not. What on earth is this podcast all about? It's AI readiness. If you're wondering where do I start with the AI journey, either for your teams or your businesses, you start here and we demystify, we debunk, we de-ice.
De-stress.
I'm trying to come up with 10. We do de-ice, if you're slipping around, we put the gravel out and help you walk step by step.
We don't go out with a boiling kettle and put it on your windscreen and so it cracks so you can't see where you're going. We do it properly. We do it old school.
Exactly. So if you need to de-ice your team, hit us up.
Coming up in this podcast, today we're going to get into ChatGPT 4.5. What's all the fuss about? We will tell you. We're going to look at some real-world applications of AI in saving time, like big time savings. And then continuing the debate on authenticity versus cheating in AI writing. That seems to be the flavour of, if LinkedIn is the sort of the town hall or the sort of the marketplace where UK PLC comes to chat about things, that seems to be the hot topic. We'll get into it.
People are getting a little bit kind of emotive about it, aren't they? And it's quite fun to poke the bear.
Yeah, we had a couple of Barneys on LinkedIn, which we'll talk about. And then we've got an interesting guest interview with Mark from Explory. So he's the boss of an organisation that does data analysis for the events industry. And we got him on because he's nailed it, right? He knows how to get the strategic, technical, people alignment. He's nailed it. So there are a lot of lessons to learn from him. He's very modest as well. I'm looking forward to talking to him.
GPT 4.5 has hit the streets. Well, it's in kind of like a research beta mode. And I was like, okay, then, I have no idea what this is all about. So what do? I ask it. So come on, fella, tell me all about you. What do you do? So apparently it's got better memory. It's going to have improved accuracy. It's able to process more complex questions. It can process images better. It's going to have better connectivity, just all round better. So it said. What's your take?
I listened to it. A lot of people have been going, oh, it's a flop, it's no good, and sort of like criticising it. I'm like, can we just, acknowledge that it's actually magical, right? So ChatGPT is magical. These are all magical. I've had a go on it, and I can't really get it to do anything different to what the other models were doing. So you got 3 mini, which is quite a good reasoning model. You've got O1, which is a good reasoning model, which are the better for sort of more thinking things through, and they sort of behave a bit like a human being. Just I had a go with it, and I went, okay, still more research needed. I've used it a few times, and then it went, yeah, you've hit your limit. So I actually can't give you any further judgment than that. It's all right having to play with it. Nothing.
Do you know what? I think because you've trained your models and the various different bots and things that you use so regularly that it might be less clear for you to see some of those improvements. But working with some clients recently, I did notice a huge difference in terms of the thinking behind before some of the responses were output. I thought, before it wouldn't have done that, or before it wouldn't have understood that word, or before it would have run away on that. So I can see from a reasoning point of view, huge improvements in the last, few months.
That's interesting. And I guess you're right about it learning me, because we've been doing some demos recently where we say to people, look, here's a piece of junky, AI slop. I'm going to write a LinkedIn article with one prompt, and it comes up with quite good stuff. So yes, I've noticed what you mean. Versus
what it used to be, emoji central, fast pacing, trailblazing, fostering and everything slop.
Absolutely.
It's getting a bit better on that. So, okay, we'll keep going with 4.5 and see what amazing things we find before 5 comes out, I guess, because that's the way it goes, doesn't it? It's like, do you remember the Now series of the cassettes? Now
Or looking forward to like the new iPhone model. Oh, the new iPhone's coming out. But now I'm like 16, 15, whatever. I don't really care. But we're still in the new iPhone mode, aren't we?
I don't. Yes, but please, ChatGPT, don't do silly things like Apple do, and every new phone you've got to have a new charger for it. That's absolute nonsense.
That's right. I don't need a new charger for my ChatGPT. But in other news, ChatGPT is just getting bigger and bigger, right? We know it's the market lead, but the gap is sort of widening a bit, right?
Yeah, massively. I was reading an article about that the other day. Let me just bring up the statistics.
Love the shuffling of papers. Sounds like you know what you're talking about.
Well, it's on the news. On the news, just in. So get this, 40.5 million downloads of ChatGPT in January.
That's a lot.
Massive. But here's the comparison which helps you appreciate the massiveness of that.
Yeah.
DeepSeek and Google Gemini combined, and that smashed DeepSeek and Google combined. It didn't actually give the numbers for that. But when you put it into comparison to Copilot, so we've got 40.5 for ChatGPT, Copilot 2.8.
Is that because Copilot is not very good? I'll just check myself then. Are we Copilot bashers? I'll just make Copilot better and we'll stop bashing it.
This is the news, it's the fact. So all we're doing is sharing that and leave a pause for dear listener to come to their own conclusion as to why 40.5 versus 2.8. So that is what it is.
Okay. Sorry for being opinionated in the news bit. I apologise.
Also read recently the ChatGPT is soon to connect and looking to integrate more with the likes of Google Drive and Slack. It's an interesting one. And there's going to be more kind of security implications to that. And it's almost doing a co-pilot in being able to access within the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think throwing forward, we mentioned Gemini, which is the Google equivalent of ChatGPT. There's a couple of things that are making it stronger. The force grows strong with Gemini. So the image creation is really good. We'll come back to that later on in this podcast. But also you can integrate it with Google Docs. And so if you're a Google Docs kind of Google email kind of business, then Gemini it's a no-brainer. So you're interested to see how that goes in terms of the ecosystem piece.
Yeah, exactly. And that's clearly why they've got involved with that little relationship.
Conversations in the field.
I love it when I'm in the field.
In my mind's eye, when I hear that little sting, you're dressed as a scarecrow and you've got like...
I love it when I'm in the field.
Yeah.
No, and I'm not going to repeat why it brings a smile to my face.
Episode 2.
This is the section where we talk about different conversations that we've had with people, with clients, individuals, teams. And I'm going to kick off with a really interesting workshop that we were at this week, where a legal organisation has been tasked with reviewing their onboarding process. So how they communicate and brace and make welcome and all of the above for new recruits, whether that is from the graduate level right up to when they're recruiting senior partners, and reimagining that to make it the very, very, very best in the whole world, and how AI can play a part with that. And there were so many use cases. I guess I would like listeners to have a think about what that looks like in their business, because it's a really great exercise. Could the CEO deliver a video message to everyone? Could you have the employee handbook on a chatbot for people to be able to speak to? Could you send a podcast across to people to be able to listen to and chat to about the culture of the organisation first? And more and more and more. It was just a brilliant exercise, and you could see people go, we could do this.
It was fun, wasn't it? And part of the feedback we got at the end of the session was we thought we were AI literate until you lot came. So that was, for me, I was absolutely delighted by that.
Yeah.
But I think, my reflection on the workshop that we ran is you need to be AI literate, but you also need to really understand the process of onboarding. So in the onboarding process, there's things like, I'll need different things at every step of the way, right? So I need to be aware of your organization. I need to understand the interview process. I need to understand the terms and conditions, the pay, all that kind of business.
Yeah.
But every step of the way, I need a different blend of cultural acclimatization and information and feedback, So
yeah. And information overload is a problem for most people on the onboarding, isn't it? Sit here, read all of this, before you even have met anybody, and that's boring as well.
And again, the purpose of onboarding, you've got to be really, really clear about the purpose of the process and the mechanisms by which it works before you can start to shove AI up its back end. So that definitely comes first.
And I thought about, from when I've started jobs in the past, years ago, there's an element of fear as well, and nervousness on the first day. So how could that be supported and reduced by providing some of this information and some little videos from your team, or a kind of walkthrough of the office? So many different ideas. The one thing that really shocked me, I hadn't appreciated, was the recruitment for graduates in the legal sector and world happens from year 2 of university, and they need to start engaging and kind of secure and then work with and kind of train and support, and then into the business. So it's probably, in fact, I don't even know how many years from year 2 of university until they've fully graduated. Is it 4-year course? That's a huge onboarding timeline, isn't it?
It is. And I remember, so I did my most recent degree. Like, listen to me, sound like I've got loads. I've got 2. I did a master's in Nottingham in 2008. I remember the road shows, like, the banks and the big organisations would come along and sort of give you a goodie bag full of stuff. What's the AI message there? Because if I'm smashing through my work using AI at uni, I need to know that I'm going to go to an AI friendly place. So it's a real, let's think of the onboarding, what that communicates to potential candidates as well. It's a big topic, and we only had a few hours on it, and we blew a few minds.
Yeah. We like to do that.
In other conversations in the field, again, I've been rummaging through data sets from our immersion programs. And I think I flagged this in the last episode. We ran a program which was roughly 10 hours worth of learning, and people came out of it, and I think it was an average of 5 hours saved per person per week. So, like, that's amazing, isn't it? Like, in the L&D world, like, when do you actually get that happening? It doesn't. So 5 hours per week out of the starting gate, and then you'll probably save more as you go. So the ROI is mental.
Yeah.
Because we're amazing, obviously, because we're amazing at what we do, right? But I thought
the LLMs play a little part too, but yes.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, we're just showing people how to use the tools. Let's not get above ourselves. But what was interesting was digging in a bit further, and what we're noticing a pattern in our immersion programs, which is there will be some people who are smashing it, and in this cohort they were doing like saving 10 hours a week. Some people who were a lot fewer hours, and so the average was made up out of from 1 hour to 10 hours. And it's really easy to just look at those people and go, your mindset's not in the right place, or you think you're too busy and that sort of stuff. But I thought it's worth sort of unpacking it a little bit and thinking, if there are people in your organisation who are a bit slower, have they actually got the opportunity to use it? Does their work lend itself to it? So writing a strategy document, brilliant, but not for everything. Mindset. So what's my mindset? Am I hesitant to experiment? Does it feel safe to do so? And am I being encouraged to do so? And one of the things we hear a lot, isn't it? It's like, I've been too busy to experiment. And we're like, I don't get that. You're not choosing the right experiments.
It's everyday tasks, and I don't get how you get through a day without using it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's kind of functionally specific as well. So I spoke to a marketeer the other day, and she went, I don't think I could do my job without it. There's only one of me, and I've got a team of 2 people, and I've got 1,000 people that I do internal comms for. And she said, if you took ChatGPT away, I'd be doing 80 hours a week. So please do not. So
probably was, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, interesting, and there's some further digging required. You can't just go, here's the tool, everybody gets more efficient. There will be variations, and I guess we need to be curious and investigate why there are variations, not just assume you can't be bothered or you're not interested, because that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah, fair. That's a good point. And I guess also it comes back to the importance of having things like Kickstart programs or AI immersion programs in organisations or for teams versus just giving them the tools and hoping for the best. The other day, somebody sat next to me in another one of the workshops we were hosting, asked her colleague, where's the button for Copilot? How do I get it?
Sorry.
And not meaning to poo-poo that person at all, it's not their fault, but the point is they had it for 6 months, and that's going to be even less than 1 hour saving, so do the right thing. Just going to put that in there. I've been asked a couple of times now, which tools should we use? It's an interesting question, isn't it? And we don't like to dictate. That's not what it's about. Obviously, we do have our favourites, and one in particular is mentioned quite a few times. However, they do all have different nuances, and it is so important that people decide for themselves based on what's needed. And isn't it the right thing to do? With guardrails, of course, but I'm going to go back to a saying that it just totally came to mind in the early days of the podcast, and that is train your people and then trust your people.
Trust the heck out of them. And our guest coming up, Mark's got a really interesting take on that because he's actually doing it. But
and it's a no-brainer, because don't we do that, or we should, with our people already in organisations? We have trained them about the risks of leaving the financial statements on a bus, so they don't do it. We just need to show them and train them how to do that in an AI world. Yeah,
so AI literate colleagues have had enough training and have got enough insight. When a new tool comes along, they're not looking at a blacklist that IT have said, don't use it. They are able to critically evaluate how safe that tool is. And is this going to help me serve the customer better?
Yeah.
So that's what you need. You need a population who are able to do that critical thinking and abide by some governance principles.
Yeah, completely.
Easy for us to say, though, isn't it?
We just did.
But yeah, we did. We're not working in pharma or finance. Train and trust. But even in those environments, there are things you can do.
And what's the other conversation in the field? I'm sure there's something on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah, I've found myself being sucked into loads of debates on, well, am I getting sucked in, or am I barging in, right, to conversations on LinkedIn about AI and writing and the authenticity versus cheating debate, right? So loads of it going on.
Some of them have really made me laugh.
Yeah.
I have to say, I do like. It's not stirring. I'm not saying you're stirring, you're contributing, but I love the fact that it ruffles feathers in the right way, as it should. So please continue.
Thank you, my darling. I've stopped commenting now, and I just wrote quite a comprehensive article and just started cutting and pasting that into people's feeds because I can't be bothered to get engaged anymore, right? My take on this, if you're sort of pondering this yourself, going back to the onboarding thing, right, and the process stuff, right? Firstly, what's the purpose of writing? If I'm Stephen King and I'm writing books, right, I probably owe it to the viewer or the reader to be giving them authentically written stuff, because that's what their expectation is. It's coming from my mind, through my hands, through the typewriter and into your brain, right? That's their expectation. If I'm writing marketing materials or writing LinkedIn articles, why have I got to slave over that just in case somebody goes, oh, you're cheating? So if you look at a LinkedIn post and think about the purpose of a LinkedIn post is engagement, entertainment, and information, right? You maybe want to establish yourself as a thought leader on LinkedIn. That's what it's for. If you're a professional writer, the soul of the work should be yours. If it's business writing, AI can handle loads of the heavy lifting, make it so much easier. So what I would say is let's just ease off a little bit on calling it cheating and hammering people on authenticity, and let's just talk about quality. Using ChatGPT, Copilot, whatever, to write content, make sure that you've got the right quality control procedures in there, and then this argument just goes away.
Completely agree. But if you come across any more posts on LinkedIn that are moaning about the use of ChatGPT or any generative AI tool or the slop, can you link Andrew and I in, please? Because we love a good poke.
Provocative stuff on LinkedIn gets more views, and that helps your image and impression. I can't do that. I want to do evidence-based, so that's my big question. Like anybody who goes on about this stuff on LinkedIn, what's the evidence they're using? And if it's not an evidence-based conversation, just ignore it.
Well, that's why we're such a great partnership, because you're the brains and I'm the brawn.
So I'll use a bit of evidence. You can go around and slap them.
Well, I've been having a little play with Sora, of course, released a few weeks back to the UK market finally. I know you'd already had a little play on it because you'd sneakily
pretended I was in the USA so I could get access, which I don't think is illegal. It was just to sort of cheat.
It is about the description and how detailed you can be to get. I mean, some of in the library that are already there are phenomenal.
Incredible.
And you don't get to see what their true kind of prompt is. It just has a strap line. And I'm like, but when I put a strap line in, it's like I wanted to do one with a bear walking along, having a lovely time, holding hands with a squirrel.
Of course you did.
Why wouldn't you? And It did eventually give me something, but it wasn't quite right. At one time, a squirrel came out of a squirrel jumping along. So it's still got some of those almost like hallucination weirdness. But bottom line is, it's bloody fun to play with.
It's really good fun. I've had a little go with Google Gemini. Google Gemini is streets ahead of any of the other tools in terms of photorealistic image creation. We've had long debates about, how do you get ChatGPT to write pictures because it uses DALL-E or whatever, and it always has that Pixar-y kind of airbrushed feel to it. But Google Gemini smashes it first time around with really simple prompts. And then in the Google Studio, you can actually upload your pictures and edit them. And that is really big. It's new and it's going to be massive. And there's potential to, if you're somebody who professionally, if you're a photographer, that's an interesting question, right? Because I can just take one photo, make it into 50 different ones. And then the other thing is, like, if you're a photo editor, what does that mean for you? I would say start learning it fast.
I'm assuming it's like a very advanced kind of Photoshop that anyone who doesn't have Photoshop skills can use.
I took your picture from our website and I changed it so you were holding a glass of milk and a biscuit in the other hand, and a squirrel was sitting on your arm, and you were wearing a bowler hat. And the first thing you said was, "I don't like the way it makes my nose look." I was like, Lucy, the magic.
The magic. Look at the squirrel on your shoulder. And didn't you say it was also doing a poo on me or something?
So if I was you, I'd be worried about the squirrel crapping on your biscuit, not the beauty of your sniffer. But anyway,
just have a go. Let's encourage people to have a go. So Sora, you should find on your ChatGPT license on the left-hand side, just above you where your chats are at any bots, it's a blue dot. You can upload an existing photo and then just say, bring this to life, and see what it does. Sometimes it's a bit weird. It could be a team photo and you say, bring this to life, and all of a sudden you've got everyone, yay, jumping up and down, and it's kind of cute.
A few things I've been experimenting with. Two things. Firstly, the power of deep research. So like now you've got deep research on the Google models, you've got it on ChatGPT, you've got it on Perplexity. You could sort of do it on Claude. And so what I've been trying is a technique where I do deep research on two models, and then I can take that, swap them over into the other model and say, can you fact check this? So it'll do a bunch of fact checking, and I get a little fact check report at the end. Then I take the outputs of both, drop them into ChatGPT, and then say, can you compare and contrast these pieces of research? So, for example, this morning I was doing, what's the future of work? Because somebody in a governmental organisation said, could you do me a quick report? So one report came back and ChatGPT said, yeah, this one's very focused on the technological, this one's focused on society shift. And I'm like, brilliant, now can you blend those up? So at the point at which I'm writing the article, it's deeply researched. I've checked myself that the perspectives of it are good. I've done a bunch of fact checking, and I've got a really good foundation for writing the article. So that's that sort of challenges that, you can't trust it. You can. Well, I'd still go in and dip sample things and do a bunch of click through, but it can do the donkey work of fact checking for you.
It's bringing the report depth, isn't it? It's not just necessarily on, therefore, one large language model's knowledge base. You are using a range of models to continually kind of enhance and consider different perspectives, and then fact check it, as you say. So there's a benefit of doing that, but I guess, we'll have some people listening thinking, well, gosh, do I have to have a license to all of those things then? No,
not always. Yeah. But I would say you need one daily driver. Like, we love ChatGPT, that's our daily driver. Perplexity's free. Google Gemini, there's a free version, so you can get away with it.
Can't do honestly, research on free.
I think if you ain't spending £100 a month on large language models, then you're potentially missing an opportunity to have that flex, because it sounds like a lot, but it ain't Netflix. This is actually ripping through your work. Yeah. So, give everybody £100 and say, bring your own AI to work, train them properly. So I don't
think it even needs to be 100. If you're talking for the year, so you're not talking for
a month. I mean, I'm on £100 a month, but you're on like 20.
I don't think it needs to be 100 yet. I'm going to say, two licenses, and you've got Perplexity, which is free. So yeah, I would be saying a ChatGPT and probably a Google. Say £50.
Yeah. Copilot is sort of just hanging in there by the skin of its teeth.
Just there, isn't it? Copilot, and yes, you said, are we bashers of Copilot or what have you? And I did want to balance what was in the breaking news section. I looked for latest news, what was interesting, what was happening, had a little play on Copilot myself. And do you know what I came across? the latest news was an update of Microsoft 365, which has
Yeah.
accidentally, for a lot of organizations, deleted Copilot.
Oh my goodness. I don't have a take on it. That's my take.
Like,
My
is it
golly
sabotage
gumdrops.
internally? Do they even think it's that bad that they're like, just get rid of it?
Well, because I was quite pleased with it the other day because voice came back. Like voice was on it for a while. You could hit the button and have a chat with it, and like nowhere near as good as ChatGPT, but it's kind of there. So in this spirit of balance, like well done for putting voice back on. Sorry that you've disappointed millions of customers, but
Because you
thanks
just
for putting-
deleted it.
Oh my goodness.
Mark is here. Should we let him in?
Yes. Well, hello, Mark. I am absolutely delighted to welcome you, Mark Brewster, CEO and founder of Explory, a global SaaS business specializing in performance metrics, helping businesses to benchmark their events across all different industries. Tell us about that. I had a quick sneaky peek on your LinkedIn, 13 and a half years in the making. What a ride.
Yeah, it's been a longer journey than I expected, but a great one all the same. Yeah, we're in the events industry. We're passionate about it. We bring measurement to the market. We're both a SaaS and a research services business working with professional trade show organizers, conference organizers, and large corporations to solve the measurement problem and prove value.
Yeah.
Okay,
amazing.
so quite a simple exam question you're working on.
Yeah, easy peasy. Solve the events industry's measurement problem. You know, that's just a small task that keeps us up at night, but we're getting there.
So obviously we're here to talk about all things AI, and we had a conversation a few weeks back, and the reason we invited you to the podcast is we were just absolutely blown away with your entire kind of ethos around AI, the strategy, the adoption, the culture for the business. And I guess I wanted to ask what made AI a priority for Explory, and what kind of challenges or advantages have you come across in that journey?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to acknowledge as a SaaS business at our core, we're all about systems, efficiencies, data, optimization. So I don't want to come across like our journey, which I would imagine is comparatively simple compared to many, should indicate that this is should be as equally simple process for anyone. We were, I would say, relatively early in our adoption of AI as a business. It was back in 2019 that we implemented the first AI solution that we used. And the first use case for it in our business was analyzing large amounts of text response data in surveys and being able to thematically code responses into logical buckets. Humans doing tasks like that, where it's repetitive and laborious and very time consuming, is a major business problem. If we didn't solve that problem, we would have, every time we were doing text analysis, we would have run an increased risk of human error and inaccuracy. And that type of work diminishes job satisfaction for the employees that are doing this heavy lift of laborious number crunching. So
It does.
You face a greater risk of employee churn, you lose efficiencies, and when you think about that commercially, that either eats into your margins or you pass on costs to your customers. So the right use of AI for a business with those characteristics is an absolute no-brainer, and kind of you almost have a responsibility to find those efficiencies for all the stakeholders in your organization.
That makes sense. Because I'm a psychologist, so part of my training is thematic analysis, where you break it down into the words and you code them up and count them and stuff like that. It's mind-numbing. Like, even if you're going after a research question, you're going, this research is going to make me famous. It's still boring and laborious, and it does not feel like it's value add at all. So I totally see why you would go after that straight away.
And I can see too, having spent many years in the event and exhibition sector some years back, how time consuming it is, and also how easy it is to miss things or to perhaps create a human level of bias to what you think people are actually saying. And so I can see how it would be massively beneficial, not just on the efficiency side of things, but also on the accuracy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can have one human look at data different to another, even within your own team, and even if you're trying to be as objective as possible. So, the consistency of analytics, I think, has made it's another element in which we've been able to make a huge difference with that application for AI in our business.
So I'm sure the customer benefited pretty early doors.
Yeah, well, initially we used a third-party solution, and that was a tool that our managed service team was able to use. And I guess the challenge for us was being able to deploy this type of capability so that all self-service users across our platform could benefit from that capability. And so we went on an entirely new journey in the next step of our AI evolution on that front as well.
2019 sounds like light years ago in the world of AI. That must seem like a distant memory. One of the reasons why we got you on is because you're so embracing of AI. Just wondered, Mark, what was it like sort of bringing your leadership and the wider team along, like the sort of hearts and minds piece of AI? Like, what's your take on that?
So again, I think this is where we were predisposed to a relatively easy journey with our leadership team, because we'd been talking for some time about how we solve this text analytics problem. And for years we've been looking for ways and manually manufacturing internal processes to try and make this problem go away and to add that additional value. So, and it did take us, there were a number of relevant solutions on the market at the time, but it took us some time to find one that was the right starting point for us. And so there'd been this management dialogue for a while running up to it. There wasn't really a requirement for much kind of cultural change in our organization. So we didn't meet any leadership resistance or any kind of employee resistance within any of the functions in our business, because everyone could see the case for it. So maybe our journey was a bit easier on that front, but definitely the challenges we had were much more about compliance and data safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where we needed to make sure that we were absolutely on point.
Yeah. And I was going to say, because you're a SaaS business in the tech space, a lot of people would naturally kind of assume, well, of course you're going to be all over AI and it's automatically accepted and adopted within that kind of organization. But I would challenge that, and it sounds like you've had a successful journey with it, but I still would imagine other organizations could still meet resistance where the culture or the mindset could in fact not support it quite as well, especially where if you've got managed service teams that are perhaps had been previously analysing the data a little bit more manually, and now that is being processed, could that have brought about fears or considerations for what that means for their job?
Yeah, I understand the concerns that many employees face where they can see that their jobs could be replaced with machines in the near future. In our world, we see so much opportunity to enhance the employee experience by AI, because there's so much value that humans can bring when they're not bogged down doing tasks that AI can be doing. And so I think the more we introduce AI into our technology and into our product and our client value proposition, the more our humans will be able to provide additional customized services and be more strategic in the way they wrap around the work that we do. And I think that's going to be more stimulating. It's going to be a better learning journey for our employees. I think it's going to enable them to develop faster and build even, have more time to focus on client relationships and client problems and build, deliver more value.
And some of the forms of resistance that we hear about are, people talking about skill fade and cognitive decline and over reliance. It's the old kind of GPS analogy. Well, you forget how to read a map, but I get to be more strategic, get more satisfaction in my work. I get closer to the customer. I get closer to problem solving. So we sort of start to develop other really useful skills. So yeah, I think we're very wildly on the same page.
And talking about the team in that respect, Mark, how have you incorporated kind of elements for your people to build their confidence, experimenting, I guess, with different AI tools?
The freedom to experiment in our business is all about compliance with client data agreements and being safe. So the first thing that we had to do was to get our policy right. And again, this is an area where we're perhaps more fortunate than many other companies in the sense that we have internal data compliance specialists. It was, a lot easier for us to work out those challenges. And so our policy, once we'd laid that out, which is very much around ensuring that when we're using third-party AI, we understand where client data is stored. Are we training on anyone else's algorithms? Are the terms of any third-party LLMs compliant with our client contracts and DCAs?
What's a DCA?
Data compliance agreement.
Got it. Thank you.
And if you terminate your agreement with a third-party AI solution, how certain are you from the get-go that not a trace of client data is retained by that third-party platform? It's things like that we needed to be certain on in our vetting process. And once we'd done that, we could create our policy, communicate it clearly in the business. And then there are other applications for AI that aren't about client data. They're about enhancing marketing copy or enhancing and improving or creating data visualization and imagery. Things like that are far less sensitive, and we're able to give employees much more freedom in the way they use those types of solutions.
That's interesting because, with a lot of organizations, the locus of governance is sort of sitting securely with the head of IT. And, some of the signals we see are you're only allowed Copilot because of that. But it sounds like there's more trust and more awareness and education in your people to sensibly abide by the guiding principles.
Yeah, I think that's a wider cultural point. Trust I've worked in environments where there's a low degree of employee trust, a high degree of supervision, and where basically very few people feel a strong sense of psychological safety. So in those conditions, I think that inhibits experimentation, frankly entrepreneurialism, and it definitely will be a barrier to employees having the freedom to work with different solutions out there. But again, if you're clear on your policy and people know where the no-go lines are and where they've got the freedom to experiment, then that fundamentally underpins, I think, people being able to get on with it, use a degree of common sense. And if there's any doubt, come and ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Experimentation is key. I'm interested in what generative AI tools do you use in the business?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on ChatGPT on a daily basis and find it an incredibly useful tool for working on communications and messaging and also learning. I was on it last night studying the finer details of product market fit, and it was it's incredibly intuitive in terms of how it's able to have a sequential conversation with you and offer you the next step in advice.
Yeah.
Whatever you're looking for. So, ChatGPT is my go-to, but there's a plethora of other tools that I know our people are using for different purposes.
Coming out each week. But you're right, it's a thinking partner, isn't it? To enhance and further kind of progress certain ideas that you might have for new business ideas, expansions, or double checking kind of the existing plans to identify what you might have missed or what the human hasn't thought of. That's the way we very much like to encourage it. It sounds like that's how you use it too.
I've been geeking out lately with Perplexity, which is more of a kind of a research assistant, which has got a large language model in the back of it. But in voice mode, you can have a chat with it and say, teach me about this, teach me about that, and have more confidence that it's using kind of evidence to do it. So I do trust ChatGPT, but I found myself chatting to its annoying Californian accenty voice. But it sounds like you're quite close to a kind of bring your own AI to work bit because you've got that trust in place.
I'm a believer in it in our business. I haven't yet used Perplexity. I'm early on my Perplexity journey, but one of our leadership colleagues is on there every day, and it's almost replacing the way they use Google.
Yeah, totally.
It does, 100%. It's a Google with a large language model in it, so it doesn't just give you answers for locations where it might have the information. It gives you the answer with the sources for that. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And for any of our listeners that are not necessarily from a tech or a SaaS business background, but on a leadership team or running a business in the way that you have and building that business, that might be sitting on the fence where AI is concerned, what would be your kind of best advice in terms of getting started?
So I think it's a very different journey for businesses of different sizes. I can fully understand, and we work with a lot of the world's largest corporations, and in some of those organizations, there is no freedom to experiment. All AI tools are banned unless they have been, very carefully, prescribed into the business. And I understand why, if you're in a financial services or health tech type environment or pharma environment, you really have to have very tight guardrails on those things. For anyone running a smaller business, an SME, frankly, you have to get on with it. This might sound like a really obvious thing to say, but the ship has sailed. There is a world of enhanced efficiency, enhanced customer value, and enhanced employee experience right in front of you. And ultimately, I think it's got to the point that if you're too sluggish on your AI journey versus your competitors, in most lines of business, you're going to be at some degree of disadvantage.
Yeah, more fool you, almost.
Exactly. If you don't have that internal expertise to help you execute on this and expedite your journey, appoint a specialist advisor and somebody that can help you execute fast and safely and with confidence.
And final thought from me, you mentioned using ChatGPT to springboard some ideas from a learning perspective. Have you ever used it to speak to you in the voice of a pirate?
I have experimented. I was joking in the car with my wife the other day, and I asked it to call me by a different name, and I changed its name. I think my name was Meredith, and I asked it to tell me the entire back history of how Guns N' Roses got together, and it waxed lyrical for about 8 or 9 minutes on the topic, and was pretty compelling. So as Meredith, I was thoroughly informed and entertained.
The light-hearted touches, but just to get back serious again, like, what's the customer benefit from your perspective? Like, I'm going to tie it to the advice piece, like get on with it. Your customers are going to start demanding and expecting it, so what's your take on it?
So the easier thing to do is to just adopt the solutions that are already out there and just log in and start to play. Now, that only goes so far in adding efficiencies. If you're a business like us, you have to build it into your product. And this is where our journey on customer value, leapt forward a completely different dimension. The original AI solution that we'd used was quite dated by 2022. Its pricing, as more and more solutions had hit the market, it was actually relatively unaffordable, and we weren't really able to embed it within our platform easily. So we had to start a new journey to go, how are we going to replace this and what with? And that took about 6 months of research. We found a number of LLMs that were really strong candidates for the task of doing this thematic analysis. We needed to be able to train it on our code frame. Obviously, all the data compliance needed to be locked down. We needed to host it in our own AWS environment, and it needed to be affordable. And so we tested 5 different solutions, and one of them stood out against our accuracy test as the standout winner. And we implemented it last year, and we're able to roll it out to all of our customers across the whole platform. And so that organizes verbatim data in the most astonishingly accurate thematic way, and really speeds up, and it literally saves them thousands of hours of laborious work. And so it's a huge value add.
Yeah. Amazing. Wish I'd have had that back in the day. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I'm just delighted and thrilled and proud with how much the business has evolved over those 13 and a half years, and I just wish you everything but continued success, adding such amazing value for all of your global clients. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank you, Andrew. It's great to see Uptake AI thriving and doing the wonderful things that you do. There's a real need need for a solution like yours. So thank you for inviting me to join you today.
Perfect.
Thanks, Mark.
See you soon. He mentioned psychological safety, and I know it might be an obvious one for a lot of listeners, but there are still a lot of people that have not come across that concept.
Indeed.
So to give your people the ability to experiment, he used the word, to play, he used the word. Obviously, they do have parameters in place to protect when it comes to compliance and security, but he's wholeheartedly running with the ship, if you can, the ship that sails.
Totally. And I want to be clear as a psychologist and as a custodian of concepts like psychological safety. There's a lot of misconceptions about it. One of them is like, if you create a psychologically safe environment, performance suffers. It's actually the opposite, right? So if you're not clear on the concept of psychological safety, Google it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all about being having trust, being open, being transparent, and being okay at not understanding something. If you've made a mistake, so we're all human, isn't it?
Safe to challenge.
Good luck, Mark. We'll keep in touch, Mark. Next up, I'll tell you what I can let out the bag just slightly, not the name, but very much hoping for a large global enterprise to join us. It is their AI adoption and implementation team, 75,000 staff. Now, I know the majority of our listeners would be SMEs, but I'm just so super interested to understand an organisation of that scale and where they've started and how they've started and what we could possibly learn from that, because I suspect, regardless of overall scale, that they too have started small.
Yes, that's going to be a really interesting conversation. And also we've got a how-to guide, a hot topic of how do you actually get a large language model to write in as you would, the same quality, tone of voice, contents, writing patterns, not have it look like it's been written by ChatGPT. We've cracked it. We'll happily share a how-to guide on how to do that yourself.
And then I guess also we'll continue to share the conversations that we have, the adventures that we have. We'll be sharing insights from the housing associations that we're working with, legal organisations. We've got private equity and even dairy farming. So what a fabulous mix.
Absolutely. And if you want to get involved in the show, we're very open to WhatsApp voice notes or emails, just like get in touch however you want. Actually, I'll give you the number for WhatsApp voice notes. UK number 07801 789 098. That number again, 07801 789 098. Send us a WhatsApp voice note with your question and we will shove it into the next podcast.
Looking forward to seeing you then. Goodbye, 10. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy birthday.
Ciao.
10.
Last word.
Me. Always me. 10. Big 10. 10 out of 10. Woo, 10.
Hasta luego.
Hasta la vista.
Oh, bollocks, can't be asked. Bye.
Welcome to the AI.